What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Mock Draft Guy YouTube channel. And in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at my top 20 safeties for the 2025 NFL Draft. And in this video, this is going to be my preseason ranking. So if you've seen these videos before, you know exactly how this goes. This is a preseason based off of last year's film and this year's hype type of video. So I will use what I'm going to try and do this year is I usually just do a preseason, midseason, and final rankings for wide receivers and quarterbacks. I'm going to try and get every single positional group out. You know, it might not be right before the preseason. It might be slightly into the season, maybe a week or two into the season, but I'm going to try and get everything done, every positional group. So if you guys know me, if you guys know this channel, you know that I love defense. Safety is my favorite position on the football field, along with linebacker and interior offensive line. So I did tackle the top 20 quarterbacks. I did tackle the top 20 running backs. I know it's a little out of order here with the safeties, but I really enjoy watching safeties play, and I think that this is a great list. So before we dive into the top 20, I'm going to give you guys the players that really I need to see either a little bit more from or just barely missed out on the top 20. So right away, guys that I need to see more from, I have a list of, I believe it's 7 that I need to see more for going into the 2025 season. That's Jacoby Matthews, who is currently in the transfer portal, could be returning to Texas A&M. Then you have Kamari Ramsey, who transferred to USC. I have Bryson Anderson, who's at Texas A&M, Bud Clark at TCU, LaMiles Brooks at Georgia Tech, Sean Brown at NC State, Achille Arnold at USC, Malik Dixon-Williams out of UConn, Malik Verndon, and really the reason why Malik Verndon is here that just missed out on my top 20 is 6'4", 225 pounds, plays a lot in the box. I think he's going to make a transition to linebacker. So that's another reason why you won't see someone like Sonny Styles on this list, is because he's just so big, so strong, so good against the run that these guys, I believe, are going to be transitioning to playing linebacker. Same thing with Sonny Styles, that already out of Ohio State camp for the most part, they did say that he was going to play more linebacker. So he is in my linebacker rankings, just not in my safety rankings. And then other guys that just missed out: Major Burns, great name; Shiloh Sanders, Jalen Catalon, and Hudson Clark just missed out on the top 20. So those are some guys that I need to see a little bit more from. Jalen Catalon is someone that's been around the block a few times. He's a little bit of an older prospect. Need to see what he could do at UNLV. Shiloh Sanders, to me, is just a little bit too old and a little bit too undersized to really be in this top 20. So those are the guys that just missed out. Let's get into the top 20 here. We're going to kick it off with Rod Moore. So this might be a shock to some people here, but really the reason why I have Rod Moore as the 20th best safety is because he will be missing the entire 2024 season due to a torn ACL. So the fact that he is going to be out the entire season, accompanied with the fact that he has another year of eligibility, so he'll probably be going back to Michigan for another season. I mean, I wouldn't take the chance on potentially being an undrafted free agent or drafted in the 6th or 7th round. I mean, I think Rod Moore, I'll be completely transparent with you guys. I think if Rod Moore was healthy, he's a top 3 safety in this class. I thought he was a top 3 safety in last year's class too, before he decided to come back to Michigan to run it back. So he's got another year of eligibility. I fully expect him to use it, but I had to include him on this list because there is that slight chance that he does come out. And if there was any player in this class that I would take a 6th or 7th round flyer on, it would probably be Rod Moore. But he's still super young. He's got another chance to go back to school, so I fully expect him to be back. But let it be known that if Rod Moore was healthy, he'd at the very least he'd be a top 5 safety in this class for me. So moving on to number 19 here, we have Lathan Ransom here out of Ohio State. You know, Ransom is a really interesting football player. He's a high football IQ guy. He's a natural leader on the field, consistently repositioning his defensive teammates. Solid size for the position, 6'1", 210 pounds. He's not going to get bullied out there. He excels in zone coverage, which is where you get to see that football IQ. He uses his instincts well. He's a decent tackler as well, and he shows some good technique. On the other side, though, he's got pretty underwhelming speed. He's probably going to run somewhere in the low 4.7s. He's not a fluid mover. His hips are tight. It takes him a little bit to get started in a different direction. His change of direction just is a tick too slow for my taste for the safety position. And he's a player, in my opinion, that does a lot of things pretty good, but doesn't do anything great. He doesn't excel at anything, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, which means that he's pretty well-rounded. He just kind of reminds me of, I'm trying to think of a player. Oh, Trey Dean. That's who I was thinking of from the 2022 class, who was someone at Florida that was a really good all-around safety, did everything pretty good, did nothing outstanding, and he wound up being a undrafted free agent because of how slow he truly was. So I really think that the one thing that's holding Ransom back is his speed. So, maybe he'll surprise a lot of people at the combine or pro day or whatever it may be, but I think that that's really going to hold him back. So I have him at number 19. I do have him currently as a late day 3 or an undrafted free agent prospect. Moving on to number 18 here, we have CJ Baskerville from Texas Tech. And the first thing that's going to stand out to you about CJ Baskerville is his great size for the position. 6'3", 215 pounds, got real linebacker or money backer appeal at the NFL level. But what's really interesting about Baskerville is he's got plenty of athleticism to play in the slot, which is where the majority of his snaps were taken in 2023. So that's interesting. A 6'3", 215-pound slot is definitely something you don't see every day. Excellent run defender, one of the highest graded safeties in the country against the run. He's got good ball skills, evident by his production in 2023, 2 interceptions, 5 pass deflections as well. On the other side, he struggles in man coverage, and his strength play to more of a zone cover specialist. For the size as well, for 6'3", 215 pounds, leaves a lot to be desired in the play strength area of his game. And his change of direction, again, like Lathan Ransom, is just a tick too slow in my taste. Takes some awkward angles to the ball carrier. I'd like to see him clean that up. He's a decent tackler and he's a good run defender, but there are plays where he can make that stop 2 or 3 yards before he actually makes the stop, and he doesn't. He does take some interesting routes, and he can get caught up on blocks here and there. He doesn't disengage that well, but Baskerville is someone that definitely can ball. A 6'3", 215-pound slot corner is something that's very, very intriguing. So I would be very interested to see how that works going into this season. So Baskerville for me is a day 3 prospect, late day 3 prospect right now. Moving on to Kobe Savage. If you guys are fans of the channel or you've watched some previous videos of mine, you will know that I interviewed Kobe Savage about a month ago. Really, really great guy, transferring from Kansas State to Oregon. It's a huge move for him. It's a huge move for the program. He could ball. There's no doubt about that. A little bit on the older side, which kind of stinks. He's 23. He's going to be 24 at the time of his rookie season. He's a fluid athlete, has elite change of direction, good speed in the open field. He's just someone that just kind of glides all around the field, and it's a real pleasure to watch his film. Then you look at a good run defender on tape, downhill style. He reads the play and he hits the hole fast. Man and zone coverage abilities are good. Toughness makes him feisty and man-to-man. He's not someone that's going to blow you away with his He's not going to blow you away with his size, 5'11", 207 pounds. Probably is going to be a little bit smaller than that when the measurables come in. Lays the boom, but for his size, he is a hard hitter. He does a good job of putting a hard hit on the ball carrier whenever he gets a clear route to the ball carrier. That's something that we did speak on in the interview that I did on the channel. So check that out if you are interested in talking a little bit with Kobe Savage. I also have another interview with fellow safety Kenny Gallup Jr. A little bit more on him a little bit later in this video. But like I said before, cons to his game, he will be 24 around the time he does get drafted. He plays out of control sometimes, overruns the play far too often for my taste. 18.8 missed tackle rate in 2023 is one of the highest I've seen in the entire class. Not good. And he does not, like I said, does not wrap up well, lacks elite play strength for the position. So a couple things I'd like to see, but he's got a chance to ball in one of the most talented secondaries in the country this upcoming season. So I fully expect him to improve his draft stock despite being 23, going to be 24 years old. I think of him as a day 3 prospect, but I could see him in that 5th, 6th round range as of right now. So it'll be interesting to see how Kobe Savage progresses as this season goes on. Moving on to number 16, I have Jeremiah Cooper here from Iowa State. And, you know, one thing that kind of throws you off about Jeremiah Cooper right away is he's very small looking on film. Height-wise, he's good, 6 foot, but he's 185 pounds, really, really tiny looking on film. He looks like he's going to get bodied by anyone on the offense. He does have some really fluid hips. He's great in coverage, so that's one thing that I really like about him. I could see Jeremiah Cooper really transitioning to being more of a slot guy at the next level. I don't think that he's going to have enough size to be able to keep up with those bigger running backs, with those bigger tight ends that are just going to completely outmuscle him in the open field or in man-to-man coverage. Zone coverage is his thing. He has fantastic anticipation, and he diagnoses plays very, very well. He's a versatile defensive back that has the athletic ability and ball skills to play anywhere in the secondary. But like I said, he would be bested by quicker receivers in the slot as well. So that's another thing that kind of stinks about Cooper, is that speed and quickness just isn't really 100% there to play 100% in the slot. He's going to be someone that if you line up, I can't really think of it on the top of my head, but if you're going to get a Malik Washington type of slot receiver at the NFL level, someone that has a low center of gravity, is strong for a smaller, quicker wide receiver, he's going to really, really struggle against him. So there's a couple of areas of his game that he definitely has to improve on here. Tackling angles and his tackling technique definitely needs to be cleaned up. And he's not a physical, in-your-face type of defensive back. He errs on the side of caution a little bit too much for me. But at the same time, that is the type of defense that Iowa State plays. They're more of a, we're going to give you a cushion, we're going to tackle you underneath type of defense, same as Iowa. So, I can't really fault him for that. That's the play style of the defense. So something I'd like to see is a little bit more in your face. I'd love to see how he does against in press man, but right now I think Jeremiah Cooper is someone that has some real slot appeal at the NFL level, but he's a day 3 prospect for me as of right now. Moving on to the top 15, we have Malik Spencer here from Michigan State, maybe a little bit lower than you've seen him on some other boards, but I like Malik Spencer. I do have some real concerns about his game, though. He's a very versatile player, played all over the secondary for the Spartans. Fluid hips, change of directions, and overall speed is very good. Good enough athlete to play in the slot at the next level, which is something I love. He's a good run defender as well for his size, 6'1", 195 pounds. Tackle technique is great, wraps up very nicely. He's much more of a physical player than his frame and his body type would indicate, which is another thing I really love, that feisty type of mentality. On the con side, he needs to step it up in coverage. He's a smart player that recognizes the play. He just looks uncomfortable in zone coverage to me. He's always looking around. He's always chopping his feet. Kind of looks like he's a little bit lost for the most part. He needs to get more aggressive in man coverage too. I want to see those hands up. I see him get in close plays. The receiver will almost always win against Malik Spencer. I want to see him get those hands up. It's almost like he's afraid to take a penalty. I don't like that. With the ball skills are decent. He has poor ball production. I don't think he has an interception in his collegiate career, and very few pass deflections as well. Another reason I want to see him get his hands up. I want to see him get a little bit more aggressive with the ball in the air. So Malik Spencer does have some real concerns, but real appeal at the NFL level as a slot guy. That's one thing that I did say about this. I did say it on Twitter. I tweeted it yesterday at the time of recording. I said that this class is so full of talent in the secondary for the safeties, but I could see a lot of these guys making the transition to the slot at the NFL level. It's just such an important position in today's NFL that we're going to see a ton of guys transition to that over the course of the next 5 to 10 years for sure. But Malik Spencer is someone that I think has some real appeal in that area. I just want to see a little bit more of his game develop. Moving inside the top 15, now we have Jaden Baron from Texas. Hookem Horns, one of the more versatile defensive backs in the class, was great out of the slot last season. So it's going to be interesting to see how Sark uses him this year with a transfer like Andrew Makuba. They have a couple of 5-star recruits coming in as well. It's going to be interesting to see if they play him on the outside in the slot or just play him at safety. I'm very intrigued to see what he does there. Fluid hips, change of direction is above average. Great football IQ, good play recognition, especially in zone coverage, can hold his own in man as well. He could lay the boom if he lines up the ball carrier correctly. Pretty good size, pretty good pop considering the size. Baron's not someone that's going to light you up on the size side of 5'11", 192 pounds. Cons, he is an older prospect. He's going to be 24 around his rookie season. His play strength is pretty disappointing. And I think that he's going to excel at the next level as a strictly coverage guy. He didn't offer much as a run defender at all, and his best plays came out of the slot. So again, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse already, and we're just at number 14. A lot of these guys are going to transition to the slot, in my opinion. He played a ton out of the slot last year. Going to be interesting to see how he plays. I heard a couple guys that I know. If you guys are Texas fans, you know CJ Vogel on Twitter. You know Nash Talks Texas. Those are good friends of mine. On Twitter, we do talk. I did ask about Jaden Baron. I did ask about Andrew Makuba. It did say that Baron's going to play a lot of corner this year, so it's going to be interesting to see how he transitions. But for now, I think he's a perfectly fine safety that has that nickel appeal. and he is my 14th ranked safety. A day 3 guy, but maybe that 4th, 5th round range. Moving on to number 13, we have Aubrey Burks here from West Virginia, a guy that I really loved seeing. Burks is a great cover safety for me, whether it be in zone, whether it be in man. He's got a 90.3 overall coverage grade from last year, 22 coverage stops in 2023, ranked inside the top 10 in the country for safeties. He's a good athlete. Fluid mover, can really swivel those hips in transitions. Explosive accelerator. Love that. Showcase some impressive ball skills and good hands. And he plays bigger than his frame would indicate. 5'11", 204 pounds is solid. Not the biggest safety in the world. Strong player as well, and he sheds blocks really well. Despite the fact that he sheds blocks well, he's not the greatest run defender, and he's a clumsy tackler as well. His play recognition could be a tick faster, and he could be an overall better run defender. That's an area that he's really going to have to work at. He's got the coverage down 100%. It's just that run defending that he's really going to have to work on. So this is someone that I could see in those kind of cover shells where you're going to have 3 safeties out on the field. Burks is going to be someone that's probably going to excel in that 3 safety look. I know Minnesota plays a lot of 3 safety as well. The Chiefs play a lot of 3 safety. The Jets play 3 safety from time to time as well. So this is going to be a very valuable player to teams like that, or teams that want to transition to that more 3 safety look. But he really, to be an overall better player, he's going to have to improve the run defending and the tackling for sure. I mean, you're essentially a second linebacker. If you're a safety, you're going to have to be a good tackler, in my opinion. Moving on to the top 12, we have Ean Warry from South Carolina. This is someone, again, who can stay back and go back to South Carolina or transfer for another season. Tremendous size for the position. 6'4", 220 pounds as a 20-year-old prospect. And he has some of the best read and react ability in this entire class. He diagnoses the play very fast, reads the quarterback eyes very, very well. His awareness is great, along with his timing. He arrives at the catch point quickly and in a timely manner. His pre-snap awareness is good, and he's great in man coverage. I mean, it's tough not to be great in man coverage when you're 6'4", and long. He's tall and he's long. His limbs are very, very long, 220 pounds. He's not going to get bullied off the line of scrimmage either. He takes good angles as a run defender, and his tackling technique is good, and he's got strong hands. And his overall speed is pretty good for the safety position. But for his size, his play strength was a little disappointing. Missed far too many tackles, in my opinion, that he probably should have made. And we could see another shift to a money backer or a linebacker type of role. He's probably going to play a lot more inside the box. As he grows into his frame of 6'4", he's probably going to put on a little bit more weight. I'd probably see him either at some point this year or next year. He's going to be around that 225, 230-pound mark. A move to linebacker, a super athletic coverage linebacker would make a ton of sense to me. But Ean Warry has a lot of promise at the next level. I would personally like to see him go back for another year. His tape looked just a little raw for me. Of course, that could change with another year under his belt in 2024. He could blossom into something much better than that. But I fully expect by the time that my midseason rankings come out, Ean Warry is going to be someone that's probably going to be firmly inside the top 10. He just missed out on it for me, in my opinion here. And we're going to move on to just outside the top 10. We have Malachi Moore from Alabama. So Moore is a typical Nick Saban product. I know that obviously Nick Saban is retired at this point, but he's a smart football player with an understanding of screens, short passes, and complex defensive of assignments. If you play in that cover 7 for Nick Saban, you have a understanding of cover 3, cover 4, man coverage, shell, all that kind of stuff. He is an extremely smart football player. He's a versatile defensive back. He could play in the slot at the next level due to his prior experience of the slot last year for the Crimson Tide. He's a natural leader of the defense. This is a common theme that we've seen with Alabama defensive backs in the past few years. You think back last year, both corners, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Terrion Arnold, were guys that were very vocal leaders, very, very smart defensive backs as well. We see that with Malachi Moore as well. Solid enough athlete to play both safety or the nickel at the NFL level, in my opinion. On the con side, though, he's got a slender frame, 6 foot, under 200 pounds. He's 198 pounds. Something that could be an issue is his play strength. His tackling issues and block shedding could also result from his slender frame. His play recognition is good, but his quickness and speed just felt a little like one step behind, in my opinion. When watching tape, it looked like he noticed the play, but his mind was going too fast for his feet, in my opinion. So I'd like to see him get a little bit more on page with that, a little bit more in sync. And then he was caught ball watching a little bit too much for my taste in coverage at times. So A lot to like about Malachi Moore, especially as a slot at the NFL level. But for me, there were just a couple holes in his game, a couple kinks in his game that I want to see him knock out before I could put him in my top 10. So moving on to the top 10 now, maybe a surprise at number 10, but Kenny Gallup Jr. is someone that I just absolutely love. And I loved him for a really long time. I reached out to him months ago because of how much of a fan I was of his game. I reached out to him and I said, hey, Kenny, like, I do this a lot on Twitter too. I reach out to a lot of players, not only to tell them that I'm a fan of their game. I just want to see if they want to come on, if they want to talk, because I love to get different perspective of different players from different areas. And Kenny Gallup Jr. is an FCS player. He's out of Howard University, plays for the Howard Bison. Great player, exceptional size for the position, 6'1", 6'2", 215 pounds. Outstanding coverage skills. Extremely smart football player that has a clear understanding of route concept. He's a fluid mover and he's quick in his transitions, and his coverage versatility is almost unmatched in this class. His instincts and field awareness are some of the best that I've seen from this class. He's a great overall run defender. His positioning is good and his anticipation. On the con side, he's not a good blitzer, doesn't offer too much as a pass rusher. That's not the end of the world. He's not really going to play too much in the box. Sometimes has real trouble getting off blocks, which is something that, despite being a good run defender, you need to get better at that aspect. You need to shed those blocks in a quickly and timely manner to be a part of the play. His tackling technique is on the poorer side. I would love to see him get better at that. And in our interview that we did have on the channel, he did mention that he wanted to get better at tackling. So I'm glad that he mentioned that as well. And while he moves well, he is smooth, he's not really overall fast. He's more quick than fast. And I know that a lot of you know what I mean by that, but there's a lot to love from Kenny Gallup's game. Maybe a reason why he's not higher up. I was considering, at one point I had him at number 7. I moved him down slightly just because of the overall competition level as well. And I hate to say that, but playing in the FCS, you're not going to be playing the cream of the crop like guys like Alabama, Texas, Notre Dame, Oklahoma. Guys that are going to be at the top of this list. So Kenny Gallup is someone that I think is firmly going to be in the top 10 throughout this entire season. But for right now, I had to safely put him at number 10 himself. Moving on, number 9, I have Jonas Sanker from Virginia. Jonas, whatever you want to say. I think Jonas sounds a little bit more fancy. So, whatever. But we'll say Jonas. I like to say Jonas, but I do say, when I listen to the Jonas Brothers, I say the Jonas Brothers just to piss people off. So I'm going to keep saying Jonas. So Jonas Sanker is number 9 for me here. Might be the hardest hitting safety in the entire class. He hits you with a ton of venom. I love using that term, venom, because it looks like it stings after he hits you. He wants you to know that he's on the field with him. He instills that fear in other players. And you wouldn't, good size. Don't get me wrong. 6'1", 210 pounds. Good size, but you wouldn't think from that size that he hits like a linebacker. Great run defender, spends a ton of time in the box, has a real appeal as a money backer at the NFL level. Size and physicality absolutely stand out. He's a good, strong, sure tackler, takes great angles and uses really good technique. I rarely saw him. I think I looked at the PFF metrics. I think he had like 5 missed tackles all year last year. Really, really good from a safety that's in a ton of plays. Good speed, showed decent man coverage ability, and zone coverage in compacted areas is where he did well. So when he's in the box, when he's manning that middle zone there, he's really, really good. While he can hold his own in man, it felt very inconsistent. I feel like at times he looked great, at times he looked really, really poor. In zone, Sanker got caught too much with his eyes in the backfield too often for me. Good enough speed and athleticism to play more in coverage. He just doesn't play to his strengths. I'd rather see him as a in-the-box safety, lay the boom on those ball carriers, and I would love to see more physicality in shedding blocks. While he is on the faster side and he can use his speed to get around blocks, when he gets latched on, he doesn't really use enough physicality for me to try and get off those blocks. So I'd love to see those hands up and a little bit more strong in that initial push. I know that you can't totally extend the arms, but I'd love to see a little bit more punch from him when trying to shed blocks. But he's a great overall prospect, and I'm really excited to see how he's going to get better as the year goes on. So we're going to move on here to inside the top 8, and we have Keon Sneed from Michigan, transferred to Alabama. Sturdy frame, built like a hybrid linebacker. 6'1", 208 pounds won't let you believe that, but at the same time, he's built like it. He's very, very strong. He's got a great, I forget what the term is that Ian Cummings uses as a really sturdy frame, but he's just a strong player. I mean, that guy is a wordsmith. If you've ever read his his reports or spoken to him. He's just an absolute wordsmith. He's awesome. Fantastic timing in man coverage. 8 catch breakups and 331 coverage snaps. Easily led the entire nation in that snap to breakup ratio. Good run style, downhill type of style. Good run defender as well. Good athlete, a fluid mover with some decent speed. On the other side, he's great. Has great timing and pass defense, but needs to work on staying on task. Got lost in coverage far too often for me. He whiffs on too many tackles, and he needs to work on wrapping up and could improve his pursuit to the ball carrier. Got lost in blocking assignments and has a tough time disengaging. But overall, I think the coverage ability is what really stands out from Keon Sapp. He's probably, for me, a top 3 coverage safety in the entire class. He's outstanding, and I can't wait to see him in an expanded role at Alabama, because 331 coverage. I should apologize and reiterate that. 331 total snaps, not coverage snaps. So he didn't play too much last year at Michigan. So moving on here. Inside, by the way, I have him as a day 2 prospect, a late day 2 prospect as of right now. Moving on inside the top 7, we have Xavier Watts from Notre Dame. Bronco Nagurski Trophy winner in 2023, an absolutely fantastic season. Allowed just a 38.7 passer rating and 0 touchdowns last year. Fantastic overall coverage player. Tenacious, instinctual, smart, and disciplined. He's a fluid mover and can stop on a dime and explode forward. Showed great overall strength and speed for his size. 5'11", 198 pounds. On the other side, a little, to put it lightly, he's an awful run defender at sometimes, just to kind of put it lightly. 18% missed tackle rate in 2023. That's something that's really going to hamper him, and did hamper him previous to his Bronco Nagurski winning season. 18% missed tackle rate is far too high. Overly aggressive as a run defender too. I feel like he tries to run himself out of plays so he doesn't have to attempt to make a tackle, and that's something that you never want to see. His tackling technique is, I'd say, garbage, for a lack of a better term, outside of attempting to tackle the ball carrier. It just seems like a feeble effort, and it needs to be revisited, and it needs to be worked upon. And outside of last year, no production. So I'd love to see him run it back, in a sense. I'm not saying put up 7 or 8 interceptions again. 3 or 4 interceptions with good pass deflection numbers and good overall ball skills, I'd love to see again. I just want to make sure that this season is not a fluke. But Xavier Watts is someone that has to be on everyone's radar going into this draft cycle for sure. So now we're moving on in a guy that just missed out on the top 5 for me. Could be bold, but Billy Bowman from Oklahoma is just a human highlight reel, is the way that I described him. Big time, big playability. Bowman is an absolute human highlight reel. Tremendous anticipation and ball skills. He times his undercuts perfectly most of the time. He's got great pop as a hitter despite his smaller frame, 5'10", 194 pounds. He could really lay the lumber. Instinctual run defender, and he sniffs out a lot of plays in the backfield. Extremely versatile and is a great athlete. On the other side, he does sell out a lot on double moves. He's trying to bite for that pick 6 a lot. He's more of a, I use the Marcus Peters term a lot, but that's the type of player he is, where Marcus Peters has a ton of ball production in his NFL career, has a ton of pick 6s, a ton of all pros, Pro Bowls, all that kind of stuff because of the numbers, but he sells out a lot on double moves. He's willing to miss deep for that pick 6 opportunity. And despite being a decent run defender in the sense that he can sniff out a lot of plays, he's a very poor tackler, especially in the open field. He's got that all or nothing mentality that is too reckless in my opinion, and he'll sacrifice chunk plays for the turnover chance. And a smaller frame means that he gets wiped out by blockers if they get hands on him. So Billy Bowman is someone that his tape is so much fun to watch. I often find myself revisiting it a ton because I was super impressed. To be honest with you, going into the evaluations of my safety class, I wasn't too high on him because I saw some coverage numbers that I didn't like, but watching the actual game film and seeing how he moves and seeing how he undercuts routes and just has insane anticipation, I had to put him up this high. I'd love to see him clean it up just a little bit to the point where he doesn't give up so many chunk plays, but man, Billy Bowman is someone that if he can clean up those chunk plays is going to be an awesome player at the NFL level. Now we're moving into our top 5 here. I have Andrew Mukuba from formerly Clemson. He transferred to Texas, Hookem Horns. Positional versatility for him is unbelievable. He's comfortable in the slot. Also played out wide sometimes at Clemson as a boundary corner. Can't wait to see how Sark uses him at Texas. Again, same thing that I said with Jaden Baron this year. He's got a ton of production. He's got a ton of talent in the Texas secondary this year. I can't wait to see how he uses it. Hip rotation and flexibility is outstanding. He's one of the best athletes for the position in the class. His change of direction is effortless. He's a great man coverage safety, can take on larger body receivers despite his slender frame, 6 foot, 185 pounds. Would love to see him put on a little bit more weight. Great straight line speed and can recover if initially beat off the line. So that's something that you don't see too often with a lot of safeties, is he does have that recovery speed. Like I said, on the flip side, 185 pounds is always going to come into question, is his play strength. I'd love to see him improve as a run defender. Oftentimes struggles to disengage from blocks. Despite displaying above average coverage skills, Makuba relies too much on his speed. Would like to see him more in a press roll or jam off the line of scrimmage in 2024. And his tackling issues could haunt him at the NFL level if he doesn't clean up that technique. So a lot to love. A couple things that are slightly concerning. Makuba is a blue chip safety prospect, in my opinion, and he just makes the top 5. So moving on here, we have Xavier Watts here from Iowa. This is a player, I'm not going to lie, I didn't hear too much hype going into my overall evaluations for the position, but one that really, really stood out. Great size, 6'2", 215 pounds, one of the best all-around coverage safeties in the entire class. Fantastic size, frame, and age combination. He just turned 20 as well. Impressive ball skills, despite not showing that in the box score. So he had an impressive amount of deflections and knockdowns. Didn't really have too many interceptions as well. Best zone cover safety in the class. Reads the quarterback's eyes very, very well. Good quickness and instincts to limit receptions. He's a fluid mover with effortless transitions. He doesn't bite on play fakes, which is something that I love. He remains very disciplined and technical. So that's another thing too. Wankpa is someone who maybe if he had a little bit more speed, I could easily see as a boundary cornerback because of that technical aspect, that discipline that he possesses in his game. He's someone that a defensive coordinator is going to be able to put all over the defense. He's going to be one of those chess pieces. On the flip side, he's not a good run defender. He has the size to play in the box, but not the skills, in my opinion. Not a remarkably explosive athlete. That's just previously what I mentioned. His speed wasn't always there. Has trouble disengaging from those blocks, reason why I don't think he would be a good box player. And his play strength leaves a lot to be desired for his overall size, which doesn't, I see that a lot with some of these guys. Some of these bigger safeties, I don't think understand really how to use leverage in their game, especially from disengaging blocking from blocks or from the tackling technique. So that's something I'd like to see him work on. But Wankpa is someone that I could easily see inside the top 3 or 2 safeties when it comes draft time. This class is loaded. The top 5 was really tough to decipher from, but maybe a surprise in my top 3. I have Hunter Waller, one of the best all-around safeties from the class. I mean, fantastic run defender, 11 tackles for no gain, 28 run stops, first and second in Power 5 for safeties. Speed pops off on the tape. He's a plus athlete. Fantastic in coverage as well. 89.9 coverage grade in 2023. He's big. He's got a powerful frame, 6'3", 211 pounds. Downhill, aggressive tackling style, good ball skills and tracking ability. He's one of the all-around best safeties in this class, and I 100% am comfortable with having him in my top 3. He's too good on both sides of being a safety for me not to be. Run defending, he pops off. He's a human missile coming into the line of scrimmage. And like I said, he's got great ball tracking ability. He's got great ball skills in the secondary. He's a fantastic player all around. On the con side, he does overextend on some tackle attempts, and he plays a little bit out of control at times, but that's something that could easily be brought in with good coaching, with a little bit more secondary coaching. That's something to play within yourself, is something that could be taught. Tackling technique needs to be cleaned up a little bit. Despite being a good run defender, like I just said, he does kind of play a bit out of control, will lunge at tackle from time to time. Same with his play recognition skills. He needs to get just a tick faster. I did see him get beat a couple times and get bailed out by some bad throws in coverage. But that's something, again, that with a little bit more time in the film room, he could easily overcome that. I think Hunter Waller is going to be a fantastic player for Wisconsin this year, and I think that he has real appeal as a early day 2 prospect. So getting into my top 2 here, number 2, I have Kevin Winston Jr. from Penn State. Great size and frame for the position. 6'2", 206 pounds, fantastic run defending safety. I would say is the best in the class. 2% missed tackle rate is easily the best in the class. Best tackling safety I've seen in quite some time. Easily trumps anyone from the 2024 class as well. Improving massively in coverage. He's the only safety in the country with an 85 plus grade as a run defender and a coverage player as well. He's a heady, instinctual player. On the other side, he's not as fluid of an athlete, and he's a little bit clunky in his transitions. His hips feel a little bit too tight for me. Overly aggressive at times, can overrun the play, and he lacks that true top end speed, and he gets a little exposed when he's not in the box. So really, that was the only difference between 2 and 1 for me. For a long time, I actually had Kevin Winston Jr. as my number 1 overall safety in the class. He did slide down to 2 for reasons being that he's just not as fluid as an athlete as number 1. And that eventually was the difference for me. And maybe to no one's surprise here at number 1, I have Malachi Starks from Georgia as my number 1 overall safety in the class. I went out early and said in my way too early 2025 mock draft, I had Malachi Starks as my favorite prospect in the entire draft class. I'm a little bit biased though, because I do love safeties. I love linebackers and I love interior offensive linemen. So those guys, I always look at a little bit more important than some other people will. Elite athlete for the position, stout run defender, excellent tackler in open space, great in coverage, 7 pass deflections and 3 interceptions last year. His timing and pursuit are outstanding. He knows exactly when to lay the wood. He's a smart and tenacious player, but he's not overly aggressive, and I love that about his game. Fluid mover, effortless transitions. That was really the difference for me from Kevin Winston and Malachi Starks, whereas Winston looked clunky and a little bit stiff in his transitions. Starks is just someone that is just so fluid from the waist down. On the other side, great mover, but he doesn't have a ton of burning speed. So I would say maybe Winston is a tick faster than Starks. He's just not as fluid. His tackling angles could be completely wrong at some times. I'd love to see him kind of clean that up a little bit. And as a run defender, he can come downhill, but a little bit out of control, and he overruns the play. So kind of the same thing with Kevin Winston Jr. These guys are both really good tackling safeties, sometimes just overly aggressive in their game when it comes to coming downhill and going 120 miles per hour at the ball carrier. Ringing in a little bit, it's okay to give up a couple yards to not sacrifice the tackle, in my opinion. But he's very, very tenacious, and he's smart, and he's so fluid. He really is a terrific all-around prospect. And in my opinion, Malachi Starks and Kevin Winston are the only 2 late first. I would say Malachi Starks is a mid-first round prospect for me, where Kevin Winston is a late first, early second round prospect for me. And those are really the only 2 guys that I would consider taking anywhere near the first round, but they're both fantastic prospects. Hunter Waller himself as well, rounding out the top 3 fantastic prospects. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. There is my 2025 safety prospects, my top 20 safety prospects for the 2025 NFL draft. Of course, preseason rankings, these rankings will change as the season goes on. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope I see you in the next one.